All right. Hey, it's model building start to finish. This is John. I'm sitting with Dan. And, you know, I keep saying it. I'll say it again. It's getting there. And it's going to be a step closer at least, right, this time?
Yeah, actually, my goal today is to finish putting all the parts on.
Oh, then all that's going to be left after that is weathering, right?
Right.
So,
and actually, I'm going to do a little bit of weathering today because some things are easier to do before all that other stuff is in the way.
Yeah. So we really are on the home stretch here, though.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm going to start with some weathering, and I'm using some black weathering powder on a micro brush, and I'm just going to hit all of the door panel seams.
Oh, is this going to make them pop a little bit? I remember this from our weathering and detailing diesel locomotives video.
Right.
Or videos, I should say. I've sort of avoided doing this because I don't want this to be an ad for our other stuff. But I do want to mention about weathering and detailing diesel locomotives. That's Weathering and Detailing Volumes 3 and 4. And it's all about HO scale diesel locomotives. And this is a series where we do a grand total of 8 diesel locomotives, showing you how to weather and detail them. And it's a lot of the same kind of stuff that you've seen in this video, but on a variety of different locomotives. Worth checking out. And you can buy them from our website on Blu-ray if you want, or DVD. Or if you're subscribed to Trainmasters TV, they're going to be coming out sometime in 2017 on Trainmasters.
Once I've applied the powder, I blend it with a big soft brush.
It's a very subtle effect.
It's a very subtle effect. Yeah, this is just kind of a preliminary way to make it look less like a toy. So I also like to weather the walkway tread now, because when I put the handrails on, it'll be really hard. So I'm putting a piece of cardboard right up against the edge of the walkway.
That keeps it off the side, huh?
Right, as I don't want to get powder on the side. And what I've got is some basically dirt-colored weathering powder on a pretty stiff brush. I'll just go over and apply it.
You going to blend this too, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this also. You even used this masking technique with the weathering and detailing DVDs I was talking about. There's the blending.
I've also got the engine on a paper towel so I don't mess up our table.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah. I want to install the little steps that go behind the cab door on the engineer's side. There's 2 steps. And it's going to be really hard I don't think we can show it on camera because my hand will be in the way. But they go behind that little piece that extends out in between there and the body. And there are a couple of little tabs on the cannon part.
So they're actually steps up, aren't they?
Yeah, there's 2 steps.
Oh, wow.
So this is always the real fun part.
I've got to say, even though I know that it was a pain to put them in, it was probably well worth it, because this adds a level of detail and realism that just, it's really neat to see those.
Yeah, they look pretty cool. Now I can go ahead and put on the handrails. And one thing I did was this piece that sticks into the cab was a little too long, so I nipped off some of it because it really doesn't need to be that long, just long enough to keep it secure. And I like to start with the back end, because if you see, this little prong is going forward. So if you don't put this one in first, you end up having to bend this back to get it in the hole.
Yeah.
Because all the other ones go in straight. So once this is in, they should all line up.
Yep, the cab one seems to go in pretty straight too, so it makes sense to do it that way.
Right. Now, sometimes also you may end up having to re-drill some of these holes, because after it's painted, sometimes some of the paint gets in there and clogs them up a little bit. So you just re-drill them with the same drill bit you used to drill them the first time.
One of the nice things about having a brass fabricated handrail like this is that the stanchions don't get crooked like a lot of the plastic ones we see in our reviews.
Right.
They're straight up and down.
Right.
That looks really nice.
So I've just pulled a couple of them slightly out temporarily, and I've got a little bit of CA on a tiny piece of brass wire, so I can just use a small amount of glues. I don't want to mar the finish at this point.
This is what I call the old brass wire trick.
Yeah, and then we'll just pop them back in again. There's this little piece of excess wire that sticks out behind the step.
It's pretty visible too.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and nip that off.
Will you be putting a little dab of blue paint on the nub there?
Yeah, eventually. So on the end handrails, I was having a little trouble getting these pins to go through the deck. So I just very carefully filed the paint off the pins because these won't show anyway.
Oh, you mean instead of opening the holes up more?
Well, I did re-drill the holes too, but I think there was just a little bit too much thickness with the paint on there, so I just filed it off.
Don't want to use a hammer for that, Dan?
No. So the last thing for the handrails is the chain.
This goes across the front and backs, right?
Right. Now this is some 40 link per inch chain. I think this one is from A-Line, but there are other companies that sell this too. I think Builders and Scale is one, and if they're still around, and I'm sure there's some others. But anyway, if you recall, on the handrails themselves, I built in some little hooks.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes this chain, it's so small that sometimes it's a little hard to even get over those hooks. So what I do sometimes is I'll take an awl.
Yes.
And I'll get the last link and put it on like a piece of plastic and then just push down a little so it opens the link up a bit. All right, so now I'll put the end of the chain on one of these hooks. Can be a little tricky to get it on there. There. Now I got to hook the other end. After some frustration, I got this on, and now it's really important to use a little CA glue.
Oh, that way you don't have it come off again, huh?
Right.
Now, you're going to have to paint that yellow too, aren't you?
Actually, no, I'll probably leave it black because chains are usually not, well, they're not always painted.
Yeah. Well, just curious. I didn't know. Yeah. I guess it'll be better because if you try to paint it, it would have to be with a brush and it would probably come off.
So the handrails are all on.
Looking good.
The chains are on. It's looking more finished all the time here. No locomotive is really worth much without couplers.
It looks neat though.
Yeah. So what I've got here is a KD158, and that's going to go in the back. And I have a KD156, and that'll be on the front. The reason I use the slightly longer coupler on the front is because of the snow plow.
Oh, yeah, it has to stick through that, huh?
Well, that and the trip pin of whatever it's coupled to sometimes will hit the snow plow and make it either not couple or uncouple when you don't want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So using a slightly longer coupler solves that problem. And since I'm not one of those people that cuts the trip pins off, I have to deal with that. So I'm going to actually paint these a little with some oxide red paint. I'm just kind of dry brushing these.
So you're really just trying to give it a somewhat rusted look, kind of?
Yeah, kind of a rusted look. I don't want to put too much paint because you don't want it. You want the coupler still to be able to work, you know. These are parts that, where working is more important than anything. Kind of like track. If it doesn't work, it doesn't really matter if it looks good because it doesn't work. I've sprayed the coupler with some dull coat, and now I'm going to use a little dark rust-colored powder and just go over it a little more on the coupler body itself.
So it already was looking rusted. Now it's going to be looking a little splotchy, huh?
Yeah, which is fine because that's how couplers look.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that it stays nice and free in terms of how it moves. And then I'm going to use some black powder on the trip pin to kind of minimize the appearance.
You could paint that black too, couldn't you?
You could, yeah. So this is one of the KD coupler boxes, one of the newer type. And this is what will hold the coupler, but it has this little lip around the edge, and we're not really going to need that on this engine. And it's kind of going to be in the way, so I'm going to file it off.
Well, what's that lip for usually?
I think it's try to make it look more like a real draft gearbox.
Oh, I see.
Like if it was going on a freight car or something.
So you're just gonna flatten it?
Yeah, I'm just filing it flush with the rest of the box. So now I can put the couplers on. I got them in the boxes.
Yeah, this is one more step that's gonna make it look a little bit more done.
Right. And if you recall, way back when we worked on the frame, I'd already tapped these holes for 256 screws. So that's what I'm using here. Just want to make sure that they're nice and free, make sure that the trucks can rotate.
Looks good so far.
Yeah. You can, if you need to, remove a little material from the back of the coupler box if the truck swing is inhibited.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't look like you'll need to this time.
The next thing I want to put on are the MU hoses, and for this engine I have these flexible rubber hoses from High Tech Details. This is part number 6034.
Okay.
And these need to be cut off of this, whatever you call this, sprue or whatever it is. I don't know what you call it when it's rubber.
Like it looks like a gasket
yeah.
with holes in it or something.
Yeah, but anyway, the nice thing about these is that because they're flexible, they won't break.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to cut them and then insert them in the holes that I drilled a long time ago. So now that I've cut out one of these hoses, I can just insert it in the holes that are already drilled in the pilot. I did actually drill them out again. Used a number 76 on the outside holes and a number 70 bit on the two inner ones.
Is that because the paint filled them in like in the other parts?
Yeah, and these hoses are a little bit thicker.
Oh, okay.
Especially the inner ones are thicker, so I needed a bigger hole.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get the part of the hose that represents the little metal piece that fits in the pilot with some blue paint.
Yeah, it's really hard to see. You're painting blue on a black piece. It's just...
Yeah, I know it's hard to see, but that's what I'm doing here. I also added the Trainline air hoses, and I had to use a number 67 bit for those because they're pretty big. But and they go in the little recessed area on the pilot. I'm going to highlight the tips too with some silver. So now I can mount the snowplow. I already drilled holes for it, so hopefully it'll just be a matter of sticking it in. And I got to feed the hoses through the holes in the plow.
Yeah, this is looking really done. I mean, the snowplow, the hoses. I mean,
it's getting there.
This is, I think we're going to have to give this one epic model status when it's done.
Yeah, and I used my 040 piece of styrene or a 040 piece of styrene to check the plow clearance, and it's still okay. Sometimes in the past, before the engine's painted, it works, and then after it's painted for some reason, it's not got enough clearance, and I don't understand that. But anyway, this one's okay, so I'm just going to enjoy it and be happy.
Yeah.
One thing I haven't done on the front yet is to install lenses in the ditch lights.
Oh, right.
So I made lenses very similar to the ones I used for the headlight. The only difference is, one, I cut them really short.
Yeah, you kind of have to, huh?
Yeah, and I didn't paint the back silver because these already have little pieces of aluminum tubing in there.
Right.
So it's already silver. So I'm just going to tack those in with some canopy glue. All right, now I'll put on the side mirrors.
I can see some holes for visors there over the cab windows, too.
Right, the sunshades. And the sunshades go in holes that are also pre-drilled.
It's starting to look like one of Dan's models.
These I just kind of push in. I just want to be really careful to push them straight. And then once they're in, you can bend them down slightly to angle it. Because this area is going to get covered up real quick, I'm going to put a little bit of dirt color weathering powder up here.
That looks like it's going to have something over it.
It is. This is where the antenna goes. But if I don't do this now, it'll be impossible to do once the antenna's in place.
You mean to get under the antenna?
Right. So just to give it a little bit of... It's not going to be that visible anyway, but I just wanted to make it look like it's not totally shiny clean under there. All right, I'm going to use just a little touch of weathering powder to kind of dirty up the area where the conduit enters the roof.
Yeah, stuff would probably collect there, huh?
Right. Plus, I think at one time the horn was mounted there. So there would probably be a rusty spot anyway.
Yeah, we haven't seen this conduit in a long time.
Yeah, actually, I have to make a confession. This isn't the original conduit that I made when we first did this.
Oh, what? Why not?
Because after further review, I discovered that it wasn't quite the right shape.
Oh, dude, you shouldn't have said anything. I'm sure nobody remembers.
So as you can see, some of this conduit is still in primer.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, it needs to be blue right where the blue starts on the body. So I'm just going to get it with a brush.
It looks like it's lifting up off of the...
It's not really attached yet. I don't want to have it too tight down because I don't want to paint the body itself. I'm just trying to paint the blue on the pipe.
Would it make sense to remove it now that you have it, have that line done?
I can lift it up enough to get it out of the way. So I just finished painting it. All right, so now that the conduit's on and tack glued down, I can go ahead and install the horn.
Just using CA glue for that?
Yeah, and in fact, it's so snug in the hole, it probably doesn't really even need to be glued, but that'll just be a little extra insurance. The dynamic brake fan grills need to go on.
Yeah, that really looks nice. These are Canon parts too, right?
Yes.
I thought so.
So I like to just get them in position and make sure that everything is nice and flush. I take some liquid styrene cement and just touch it to the outside.
So, but you still have to be really careful, right? When anytime you might handle this thing, because
yeah, they can get knocked off, fairly easily. So you generally don't want to touch them if you can avoid it. So if you remember, I left the rear sand filler hatch off until after painting.
Yeah, we were talking about why you did that, and it was because of the painting.
Right, because it would have been in the way. So now I'm going to actually glue it on.
Oh, this is a CA application?
Yeah, and I got to be really careful not to glue my fingers here.
Not to glue your fingers and to get the placement right in the first chance. Otherwise, you're going to put that glue on the paint job, the nice paint job.
Right. There.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to put the big antenna on the roof. Now I'm going to put the brake wheel on the nose.
Coming together. Wow. Oh, you're going to press something flat on it to make sure it's...
Well, I want to make sure it's not crooked.
Yeah.
I just put on some more of that 40 link per inch chain for the
brake chain.
Brake chain, yeah. A long time ago, it seems like I put a couple little hooks, one on the truck and one on the engine to hold the chain.
Yeah, remember that too.
Yeah. So one thing to remember is if I ever need to take the shell off, I will have to unhook one end of this. Otherwise, it won't let the shell come off.
Yeah.
And the other thing to remember about this is you have to leave enough slack in it so that the truck can swivel to go around curves.
Yeah.
So it's probably not as tight as it would be on the real engine, but I think it still looks pretty good.
It does. It looks really nice.
Well, guess what?
Well, I know it's not done because we still have to weather it.
Right, but I am out of parts.
Oh, are all the detail parts on now?
Everything's on. This is assembled as it's going to get.
Oh, so if it came out of a box like this, we would definitely call it an epic model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After all this work.
Yeah.
The only thing really left is to give it some weathering.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll do that next. Or is that next chapter?
Next chapter. Yeah.
Oh, well, this is 24 or 20. What is this? 23 of 25. It's like
something. Yeah.
a year and a half later.
Well, hey.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll do some some more weathering because you did weather the.
I weathered a little bit just to get it started, but I'll do the real weathering on the engine.
Sounds like a plan. We'll see everybody next time.
Yeah.